I would rather go and fail by 30 than be 50 and wonder what I could have done. You got to know, when to work hard and when to let's see if these plants are going to grow or not.
Sometimes you just need to stop and slow down. You're not backpedaling if you do that. If you're good, then you're always going to have the following. People are going to find you.
Anybody can be a fat loss coach, really. You know what I mean? Anybody can. But can we guarantee success? If everything that you do in this industry is everything you do in this industry, you're missing a lot.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thank you for joining me and welcome to the show. It is a true blessing to be able to connect with the top minds in strength each and every week and share stories, insights, and experiences on becoming stronger in every area of our lives. And now I want to do more for you. I want to invite you to join the exclusive private Facebook group of The Strength Connection. In this group, I share the biggest takeaways and lessons from these amazing conversations, as well as training and strength tips for pursuing mastery and fulfillment in life. This group is filled with individuals looking to take full control over their strength in their lives, and it's the perfect space to explore ideas and share your journey. You'll also get exclusive access to the Strength Connection Mastery Seminars. It's a deep dive into physical, mental, and spiritual training that you can begin using immediately. Just go to the Facebook groups, type in the Strength Connection, and you'll be accepted immediately. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the inside.
Welcome back, everybody. DJ, dude, so good to see you. It said 8 years since we met at that first dome. Holy shit.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I appreciate you making time for me and thinking enough of me to invite me on. So that's pretty special. So thank you.
Oh yeah, it's an honor to connect. It's funny that shout out to Monica Boldt for connecting us. She reached out. She's an awesome instructor, awesome lady. We had a blast when we connected. Yeah. So
she's a lot smarter than she gives her credit for. Her Indian club stuff. If any of your viewers are into Indian clubs, man, you gotta be watching Monica. So she incredibly talented. Those clubs make it look effortless.
That's it. Those people like Monica who do Indian clubs and stick mobility, it's such an effortless look when you're really good at it. It's kind of like if somebody's really good at martial arts, it just looks like the most effortless thing in the world when you realize there's a lot of hours that are spent in that practice.
And she's probably thinking about something she's somewhere else. She's probably thinking about what she's making for dinner. She's not in that moment at all, man. There's a million things going on. Those clubs are everywhere else for sure.
That's crazy. Yeah. So, but yeah, man, we were, I met you at the first dome. We were under Prentice Rhodes, one of my favorite people ever that I learned under. Shout out to Prentice there.
Are you ready, man?
Can you dig it? Right.
Can you dig it?
Yeah, but dude, you've been in this world for a long time. I followed you from Queen City for a bit.
Yeah.
You've really been in this world as an inspiration. So just really excited to learn more about you and really just dive into some fun strength stuff. So, to kick it off, you were just telling me about your trip to Nashville when you first found out about this and met the Iron Tamer. So if you could tell me a little bit more about that story of how you kind of found your way into this world of strength.
Oh, for sure. This is the least congruent, most convoluted story how you can come up into this industry, really. So, it kind of, and we will give props to Nashville because who's in Nashville, and that's Whitley. So before that ever started, I was a marginal athlete. I wasn't, there was no scholarships, any colleges on my horizon, and I knew that. 3-sport athlete. I played soccer, wrestling, and baseball, pretty much in that order. Somebody put a skateboard in my hand later in life and I was out. It was newfound freedom. It was perfect. And I kind of fell off, but I was just so active, skating everywhere. Went into my first gym with my neighbor when I was 13 or 14. And, we were kind of talking beforehand about some of the stories that I have. And the story about that first gym is hilarious for so many reasons, but it left such an impression on me in a young mind of what, you can do and what that feels like and what you see other people do in a gym. I was hooked. Right. So I can't think of a time that I've been away from the gym or some type of training since I was 13, 14 years old.
Wow.
You take the breaks, but I've always tried to do something, always tried to be moving and whatever. And I've been bigger, I've been smaller, I've been stronger, I've been weaker, I've been into this, I've been into that, we all play those games. So, I just wanted to work in a weight room. That was my goal in life. I wanted to work in a weight room. And back then, in 2000, strength coaches were a thing, but nowhere near as prevalent as they are today.
Right.
And really, to my understanding, was if you wanted to be a strength coach, you were going to go teach a high school, and you got in the weight room and you took a stipend, you coached football, whatever it was, and you just moved up. You hope that the guy who brought you on moved on, and you moved on, and you moved on. And that was the plan. And I was cool with that. I was going to teach high school. I was going to be in the weight room before and after school. That's all I wanted to do. So I had a job pretty much right out of high school at a Gold's Gym. My second day there, I was standing behind the counter, like checking people in. And one of the manager comes over and goes, "Hey, you know how to train people? We need you." And it's like, and that was it. I was thrust into it. And it's so funny because one of my first clients I still see today. It's kind of irregularly regular. So I'm 19 at the time. I'm 40 now.
Yeah.
So we're talking 20 years ago that this young lady still will occasionally pop in, hit her training with me. We just have such a long rapport. She's got like 4 or 5 kids amazing. At this point. Yeah. So it's just too funny. And funny enough, she's followed me everywhere that I've ever gone. So it's been great. So in the process of going to school, I was an art history major. So it's a fun fact. A lot about me is I have a love for art, and a lot of people know that. And it's always like kind of like this weird little like fun fact about DJ.
Yeah.
So it was
what kind of art?
I always love sculpture. So if you're familiar with Bernini, I've got 2 sleeves from Bernini. There's a big book somewhere back here of all his stuff. Always been fascinated. And I'd love to go see his sculptures in Italy. Just like how somebody can create that at that time is amazing. So it just, I was always drawn to that.
Yeah.
And there's some other artists and some things that I really appreciate, but the sculptures were always cool to me. I got into some of the more modern stuff later, just because I think it was cool at the time and it was new and just had a lot of traction and people dug it. So, so 9/11 happened when I was in college, and a lot of kids our age got filled with patriotism. I had family in the military, and I saw, kind of what they went through. And, it was pretty obvious we were going to go to war, and none of those 2 things excited me in the least bit. I knew that wasn't a fit for my personality.
Yeah.
But the fire service was. So I took the fire test, went through recruit school. It was great because recruit school was a full-time job. You go in at 8, you go off at 5. 2 days a week, I went back to the gym at work. We didn't go to recruit school during the weekend. I was at the gym.
Right.
So it was like, whatever, I think it was like 16 weeks, whatever it was. I was no days off, man. I was grinding, doing this. And I hate the word grinding. I think it's overused, but that's 16 weeks and no days off, man. I was recruit school gym. So I fell into the fire service. Absolutely loved it, and still trained on the side, got involved heavily with some of the training stuff that I could in the fire service, and rode that for a little over 10 years, almost 11 years. And when the economy tanked in 2008, I lost one of my firefighter jobs, but still had my main job, still doing my thing, 27, 28, however old I was at the time, just happy. But I just had too much time off on my hands for a guy like me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So idle hands are the devil's plaything. So I had a business partner at the time, and we were kicking around opening up a gym. We were heavily involved in CrossFit. I had gone through and gotten my level 1. So I'm in Ohio, so I'm in Cincinnati. So I got Rogue, an hour and a half up to.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Obviously big in the CrossFit, and they were holding seminars up there. Originally, it was I think it was called Rogue Fitness Gym. It was an actual gym that was separate from the storefront that everybody sees today.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay? And they would host them like every other month, man. They would just host them. So went up there and we got into it. And kettlebells were a big part of CrossFit at the time.
Yep.
I just kind of fell in love with it. Fast forward a little while. The city of Nashville was hiring for the fire department. So I said, I want to go take this test because it's my first love. It's what I know to do. I've been doing it for a while now. And business partner and I were kicking back these ideas. And I decided to call a handful of gyms down there. Who will spend time with me? Two guys. One was a guy by the name of Apollo. Spent a lot of time with me. I don't know what happened to him. I'd love to reconnect with him. That guy was a wealth of information. He had an amazing facility.
Yeah.
And it was a CrossFit gym. I don't want to misquote. I think it might've been CrossFit Nashville. I'm not sure. And then Dave Whitley. So I called Dave, got in the rental car, drove right to Dave's place before I had to go take this test. Dave was, I'll make an hour for you. And, it's kind of like what we were talking about before we kicked this off, just a wealth of information. And Dave went above and beyond for me. And he gave me a lot to think about. And, I can't give him enough respect and enough props for the amount of time that he spent with me.
Yeah.
Went home. A couple of days later, Dave called me and said, "Hey, I'm hosting this event down here. Why don't you come down and check it out? If it's for you, that's great. This is a great way to get into kettlebells and everything we're doing. If not, you just out a couple $100 for the certification and it's no big deal." And that was the HKC in 2009 or it's got to be 2009.
Yeah.
Because then I went to the RKC in 2010 in Virginia. So went back, we opened up a small studio. It was like 1,000 square feet.
Yeah.
It had a bunch of raggedy bells and just the bare minimum. And it just started growing. And it's kind of this like scale, if you will.
Yeah.
The gym was kind of going because nobody was really doing what we were doing here. I'm not going to say I'm a trendsetter by the least bit. I was copying stuff that I was seeing, I was just kind of like doing some things that I knew. I was ripping off My Mad Methods, the magazine. If you remember that? Like, just stealing everybody's stuff.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. But doing that presented me opportunities to meet other people. Like I remember John Brookfield called us. If you know who that is, he was the battling ropes guy. And he said, "I'm going to be in town. Can we do something?" And I got connected to John. Yeah. So word really spread quickly that there was this small gym in Cincinnati doing kettlebells, and like people had seen them in CrossFit, and they were getting some attention. So we started to get some attention. The other side of that is, we talked about the economy tanking in 2008. When you look at the fiduciary responsibilities of a municipality, if something has to get cut, it's usually public services. So you're looking at like your city workers, your police, and your fire. So for the next 2 years, they kind of dangled this carrot over, on a string and a chopping block. We're going to lay off and fire. We're not. And it's when you're young, I guess you can put up with it. And I'm not going to say I was old at that age, but you want at that stage of your life to have a plan. Right. And I was starting to get nervous because here's what I've been doing for a long time and I loved it and I didn't know what else to do. But over here's this gym thing kicking off. So there were a lot of overall contributing factors to my decision to leave, but it came down to one thing. And that was, I would rather go and fail by 30 than be 50 and wonder what I could have done. So I was like, man, I got to make this jump. Yeah. So I made the jump to start the gym. And I knew that if I was going to do this full time, I needed to do certain things to, I don't want to say be legit, but give myself some validity and really like set myself up for success. When I went to recruit school, I dropped out of college. In fact, I didn't just drop out. I just stopped showing up. Yeah. So I did the same thing. So years later, when I go back to school, it's at the University of Cincinnati. I go back and I say, "Hey, I want to re-enroll." It's been like 15 years. Yeah. And they pull me up.
I was in the bathroom for a while. So
they're like, "You're not even in the computer. Let me go to this old like sheet paper, like tearing off the edges, And so he's like, "You're on academic probation." I was like, "No, that was like 15 years ago, man. Like people make mistakes, Right. And he's like, "It is what it is, my guy." And I said, "All right." So like, he didn't even bat an eye. So I was lucky enough to find a school that, I could work with being a former firefighter. It's a great institution I found called American Public or American Military, depending on what side you're coming from, and eventually got my undergrad from. So it was just kind of funny. Really, I leveled all those positions that I got in life from having that gym and starting that gym. So it started with meeting, the experts like Brookfield and so on and so forth. Yeah. I had a chance encounter with Dan John one time up at Denison University. And when I was there, I met some football coaches, and then those football coaches called me, and then I was in there in front of the players, and the players called me, right? Yeah. So it's that ripple effect of that's how it started. So now I'm working with football guys and pro football guys. And now, at the time, they would let interns and other people who worked for the front office of some of these teams come work out in the weight room when the players weren't there. Mm-hmm. So then I get introduced to those people. So it's just, that's how it all started. I just made calls to get into it. I started to call high schools and say, hey, do you guys have a strength and conditioning coach? What does your athletic department look like? So I started to get in with high school kids. And eventually that led to picking up contracts to coach on the high school level.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That turned into going to seminars and continuing education. And that turned into a chance encounter with some college coaches. And there was a coach here, and I had followed him on Instagram. I saw him from where I was sitting, and I waited for a break. And I beelined down to get him. And I remember I shook his hand, and I didn't let go the entire time I talked to him. And I introduced myself, and he was like, yeah, I know who you are. And my mind was blown. I said, I never knew. And he said, why don't you give me a call next week? And we'll just grab lunch. I said, okay. So I called him. We set up a time. I showed up 20 minutes early. And he's like, hey, I got some stuff to do. Why don't you show these guys some stuff? And he left. So I'd never been in a college weight room before. And here I am 2 minutes in, and this dude's like setting me up. Yeah. So I was like, I had that moment of panic, like, oh, what do I do? And then I'm like, wait a second, I'm the kettlebell guy, or I do whatever.
Right. Yeah.
It stemmed from there. So that opportunity of being prepared.
Yes.
And we talk about something I'm thinking about lately is what is luck? And somebody told me where opportunity and preparedness meet. And it was things like that that happened.
That's exactly what I was thinking about when you were telling that. It's just always be prepared, and just all of a sudden somebody might give you that opportunity that you did not know about from there. And then it just comes. It's so interesting how just those little connections of just going in, just shaking somebody's hand, holding on to it for just a second longer. It's like, just like taking like your
4
opportunity.
Minutes longer,
taking that out. It's so powerful of what those, chance encounters can do and just lead you down the line.
Yeah. So it turned into going to those seminars, because now you're going from just being like a personal trainer and going to those continuing education to now you're going to continuing education with college strength and conditioning coaches and high school coaches to now they're professional coaches. Now there are like these top tier people that you're networking with all the time. And excuse me, that's how it started. So through the years, the resume includes working in high schools, working in D1, lots of personal training, owning Queen City Kettlebell. I got to give myself a shout out there. Working with baseball athletes, football athletes. We have a hockey team here. At one point, we had 2 hockey teams here. Worked with some hockey guys. I've kind of lost track at this point. I just like going to work. I like, I don't want to be in charge. I just happen to be in charge. I like going in, doing my work, and that's where I thrive. And I'm celebrating 12 years. 12 years, the gym has been open and cranking. Wow. And then it's been my full-time gig. 9 years this December is when I left and made the time to go do it full-time. And it's had some highs, it's had some lows, but it's really, without opening that gym, I don't think I ever would have had the opportunities to do that and continue, even to this day, even though I left the fire service, to still be able to work with, I'm really good friends with a union advocate who has connected me with a lot of guys in the fire service, which then led to connecting to unions and departments to work on their health and wellness. So I got a lot going on, and I'm thrilled about it. It still keeps me involved in the fire service in a way that I love. Right. But I still get the thrill of coaching some athletes. I'm just wrapping up my high school athletes now, which is awesome. But it also keeps me connected to people like you and Monica. So I really feel like I'm in a good place, and I have I can just do a little bit of whatever I want. That's great.
That's so awesome. The line that you mentioned there, I think, is just so powerful of like, I'd rather jump into this and fail, when I'm early on and I can still recover, versus not trying and then just wondering behind. I mean, it's something that we see all the time is like, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret, type stuff. It's like, we totally understand that, but still it takes that jump. It takes that leap. It's not an easy thing, to do from there. So
it was definitely scary. There were definitely some sleepless nights.
Yeah.
I'm the type of guy that I'm very driven. The only person I think who has got a higher work ethic than me is my mom. My mom puts me to shame. She's in her 70s. And
there's genetics there, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So my mom set that example early on, and to have that work ethic pays off. There's definitely times where that's been a detriment, because sometimes you got to know when to pump the brakes. And we talked for a hot second the other day. We were on the phone about, making mistakes. That was definitely one of them. You got to pump the brakes sometimes. You got to know, when to work hard and when to let's see if these plants are going to grow or not. And if you need to plant more, foster these relationships, or just whatever the deal is.
It's interesting. I love talking to people like you, DJ, because the hard work and the effort and the drive just pours out of you. You can see. I mean, we were talking about the books that you have behind you, being a vicious reader in there, and I equate in the same way. But when you're always in that position, I think, and you know what you want to do, and you put that hard work in, all these opportunities, they seem to just luckily just arrive for you. It's like, you think like, oh, it's a chance encounter that I met Dan John and I got to meet professional football players in there. It's like, yeah, but if you put yourself in that mindset, I'm going to work at it every day. And it's always interesting. There's, of those questions of like, oh, what are the 3 lessons or the 5 keys? Like, I always hated those, because in 12 years of owning a gym, you probably learned 1.5 million lessons every single day, and different encounters, different handshakes with people that lead you down the line. So it kind of all gets muddled up, but it turns into like this amazing amount of knowledge and people that you can work with, till still people who was the first person that you worked with 20 years ago when you didn't know anything is still coming back.
So her name is Erica. And I'm hoping, because I will post this, one of my very few social media posts, I'll post that I'm on here, and we'll see if she listens. So I'll put something out there to see if she'll hear it. So yeah.
Well, it's an interesting thing, because it's always knowledge is power. I understand this potential power, and it's great to learn all these things. But I've talked to early coaches who are just getting into their careers, and I've said the same thing. It's like, if you show somebody that you care 100% about them, they're not thinking about every credential that you have and how many books that you read. It's like, they don't really probably give a shit. I think we, especially coaches, like, continuing education is great, but knowing, as you said, when to pump the brakes on that and just focus on the people that you're working with. Sometimes that's the education that you need at the moment.
I think that was one of the things, if you talk to guys who have been in the fire service for a long time, there's a certain culture, and everybody knows about it. And it's very stressful at times, and there are certain ways that you talk to each other, and there are certain ways that you don't talk to each other. That didn't necessarily translate into working privately, because, I'm used to talking to guys that, like, if I cuss them out, they got to show up to work the next day. You don't have a choice. I'll see you in 2 days, homie. Like, you got to get here. If I lose my patience with the client, they're not coming back, and I'm out the money, and I got to start to whatever. So learning communication and different communication styles was something that I had to learn and adopt early. And I still learn today. I still do it today, that there were things that I had to change how I talk to somebody. And I think that really did help in fostering those relationships as well as those opportunities. Because had I sounded like that firefighter that got off the truck some days of talking to Dan John or, some of those coaches, they weren't going to talk to me. I could have been the hardest worker, smartest person, but just as soon as I opened my mouth, no, they weren't going to do it. So the communication was key. And I think that's something we overlook tremendously in this industry.
That's interesting, because there's the term, the art of communication. And if you say that, it's an art form. It's like, it's something that you need to learn and you practice just like anything. Yeah. And I didn't put that 2 and 2 together, really. It's interesting. If you're working with another fireman, whatever you say to each other, you're going to probably see them in a couple of days and you'll sort it out. It's kind of like being a brother, with somebody. It's like, you're still going to be brothers. With clients and working with private business, it's not like that. They don't know you shit. Like they don't. You better know how to get your point across, but in a way that is, going to empower them, not just, bring them down.
Agreed. I think It's such a tricky thing. And there's a lot of I think communication is one of the buzzwords and buzz topics in this industry. Mm-hmm. But I don't think we're thinking outside the box with that. I want to see, when I went back to school, I got my undergrad, then I went and I got my master's. In my master's program, we had a lot to do with sports psychology. And it really got me thinking of how do we effectively communicate to, our athletes or our clients, what we want to do for them and what we can do for them, right? Because when somebody comes in the door, they have, I don't want to say a goal, because communication, I don't use the word goal. They have a goal of what they want to do. And meanwhile, I have a measure of how I'm going to get them there and what I want to do with them, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not, projecting, but I want to do these things to get you here. So how do we measure that success? And that's what goals. So mm-hmm. I stopped saying, what's your goal? Mike, how do you measure success? What's success look like for you?
Yeah.
And it's going to change. It's going to change big time. You're going to go from, Susie Homemaker, well, I got this reunion, I want to drop 10 pounds, right? We get it. There's an aesthetic feel to, I think success is going to be learning to eat right and exercising and improving the quality of health. How do I do that? I want to move better. I got kids, I got whatever.
Right.
So it's no longer a goal, it's success and it's long-term. So now we can establish what that looks for them and how we can make it happen. Anybody can be a fat loss coach, really. You know what I mean? Anybody can. But can we guarantee success? No, if we don't know what it is. And guarantees probably not the best word to use there, but we have a better shot at success if we know what it looks like versus just the goal.
Right. It's interesting. I absolutely love that. I love that changeover, as you said, of measure success, because that gets much more into the subjective and the emotional side of it. And that's what we're dealing with. Yeah. It seems like the term goal, it's just like people in health and fitness. A lot of people, if they're not accustomed to it or they don't know it and they think that they lack knowledge, they think that it's so objective, where it's like, what's your goal? They need to put something down objective. I need to lose, I want to lose 10 pounds. And so, but that's just a number. That's just something that they think maybe they want to do, but there's nothing tying that in there, where the approach that you have with that, it seems like it's much more of a conversation right off the bat. That's
what it is, because then you instantaneously, you establish a rapport with any of your clients. It's going to be, like I said, the Susie Homemakers to any of the athletes, because that athlete's success looks a lot different than yours and mine. Even though you and I want to think we're athletes, nobody's paying us to be an athlete full time, exactly, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that looks different than everybody else's. So it does create that dialogue, which is important. And we go back to communication. So what are you doing with that information? And then I think when you ask somebody what their goals are, I think it's too arbitrary, right? It's just this thing that hangs in the room, right? What am I supposed to do with this? So once this is it, that's it.
Right.
What do we do? Oh, well, that's just part of the success story. Okay, let's get rid of the goal. Let's make it a part of the whole successful process.
Yeah. It's interesting too. I've thought a lot about that for a while, because the term goal I've went back and forth with. Is this the good word? Is this a bad word? These have been some interesting journal entries, from it for a while.
I'm seeing you right. I'm like, is that good? Am I getting redlined right now?
Oh, absolutely. I'm just a note taker. It's just how it goes.
I appreciate that.
But it's, it's interesting. If I asked you, what's your goal? You could think right now, what maybe your goal is at the moment. But once you start building into and getting to that goal, other things that you want to do might start opening up more afterwards. It's so a lot of times we single out oh, what's your goal? And okay, then we just immediately start going into working on that. Actually never going a step below and being under the surface of, first, why is that the goal? But then what's really the ultimate goal behind it? What's the feeling that you want to accomplish? And if we don't get there, then no matter how great of a coach you are on the floor, you're always going to be at the surface level, and it's going to be just very challenging to get below that if you don't hit that right off the bat.
But how many times has somebody walked in and they said, this is my goal, and then you start training, you start working towards that, and the goals change and they shift, and they should. But why should the goals shift? Why aren't we looking at the same little meme that goes around on social media? This is what success looks like, right? If we take it from this to a path, It's different. We're not looking at things the optimal way sometimes. We're too narrow-minded. And changing goal from success is a really, I got a ton of these that I've done. That changes the conversation that you're having with people.
Yeah, it's one of the conversations I had was with Dr. Lisa Lewis. I don't know if you know her, but she's amazing. Her and Tony Gentlecore, they're married, and her program is Psych Skills for Fit Pros. And the thing that she told me was, like, out of the 5 people that sign up for even a program, even hiring a personal trainer, 4 of them are not mentally actually ready and committed to going after their goals. But many times they're just so desperate to make a change for anything that they will invest some money. They'll do, because that's just saying, okay, I'm doing something towards it.
Yeah.
But they're still not fully ready to do it because they haven't fully processed it. And that's not a fault, I think, of anybody's their own. It's just, we've made goal setting such this short term, okay, what's your goal? And then just immediately go after it, when that should really be like the main focus for a while of really establishing that.
Yeah. I noticed, when I did that, it was a part of the puzzle that I was looking at so it was an overarching picture of, why don't I post on social media? Why don't I do anything out there? It wasn't getting me the conversations with people that I wanted. So I looked internally at my client base and said, what are the deeper conversations that I can have? And I had nothing to lose by changing how I spoke to these people, right? Like, I wasn't like speaking to them negatively, obviously, but changing I had nothing to lose and I had everything to gain. And it was putting that internally instead of focusing on those outside forces changed everything. And I did that. The big change of like really shifting it, it was probably just after COVID. So I've been thinking about it. COVID happened. I had those 10 weeks off. And I was like, oh, man, I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna dial this in. I'm gonna do this. And opened up, and people weren't showing up yet. And I was getting nervous. Well, I started to have these conversations, and it's been awesome. And those conversations, I think people tell other people, they tell their friends, like, hey, I'm having this deep conversation. And then they pull it in. Yeah.
When you started making this changeover and the differentiation with, kind of goal for success and getting deeper, did you see the change immediately when you started talking to people, or is it a little bit more gradual as it went along?
I think it was more gradual.
Yeah.
One of the things about me is, I think it's kind of funny. I think about it. I think my clients, my friends will watch this, or they'll hear me and they'll be like, man, that's not how you are at the gym, right? That's not. You go to work and you put on this WWE persona. Yeah. And like, you're vibrant, and you like chug this coffee, and you got to be like, boy, like 1 o'clock comes around, you got to take a nap real quick. Or now you drive home with no radio on. I don't think I was really taken seriously at first, because I had to dial down that persona and ask hard questions. And it was a weird time, because coming out of COVID, people were really divisive about the situation. They were divisive politically. It was weird. So I'm like, okay, I guess I need to kind of chill a little and just sneak it in. But pretty soon I saw other people having the conversations without me. So I would walk in and I would hear the conversations. And then that led to deeper conversations, and that led to deeper conversations. So now you come in and we're getting after it, but we're having really good conversations. And I think that's a part of success, where maybe you're not getting that in other areas of your life. You're not getting stimulated mentally because you work, in a basement all day, right, on Zoom. Right. And you got 3 kids and you have other responsibilities. So we're hitting the physical part of success, but what's this mental piece that we need to work on a little bit too. Not everybody can read all the time, but maybe we can spark a conversation.
Well, and I think the conversations, you learn so much from those, especially with people. Just that one layer deeper of knowing somebody. My mentor and coach and good friend, Brian Gross, always says this. It's like, if I don't know your pain, I don't know you. You know, it's like if you know somebody of what makes them tick and they can be vulnerable with you. And it's hard because, I mean, as coach, it's fun to be the WWE, come in and, you know, pound the drink and fly into the ring.
Yeah.
That's the fun part of coaching. There's an energy to that, and that fuels us at the same time. But there is that place to go deeper into that conversation. And I don't know if this is for you, but it is for me. Like, those conversations are exhausting. Like, I'm tired by the end of the day.
They are.
Some of that, but they're so worth it, and they're so powerful when you get into it and you make so much progress.
Yeah, and I think so. We looked at that W persona, and coaches read coaching books, and they read, and they're like, your clients don't care about you, and you're just there, and you got to be interested and not interesting, and blah blah blah. It's like, no, man.
Yeah.
You got to make sure, like, that's some heavy stuff these guys are talking about. Like, you know, younger kids, some of the stuff they talk about, like, I don't know how they handle it. And now I'm taking it off. So you have to make sure you're taken care of as well. Right. And I don't want to jump on like the mental health train, because that's getting a lot of traction now as well. Yeah. But the mental health side of things is something that needs to be explored when we look at success. So just changing the conversation revealed this whole other way and whole other path of things that needed to be explored. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you know, you can only come into the gym and swing kettlebells and drop bars so much, right? Yeah. Like, you need to sometimes you need to vent.
Yes.
And you're going to see me 3-4 whatever hours a week, and I'm the guy. And that's hard to take on. So now you got to make sure as much as you're getting, you got to get. So it has to be that two-way street.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't imagine being a teenager and a high school athlete now with everything that they go through now. And I'm sure you see it firsthand with these kids. And I thought I could still relate. I'm 38. I thought I could still relate to being younger, because sometimes I feel young, man. You know? Exactly. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. But like, going through, and my sister's a teacher, I've talked to her about it and stuff. It's like, wow, I cannot relate with that generation anymore about what they're going through and how they've, you know, gone in. And I know everybody talks about the social media aspect and stuff, and I get it, I understand. Yeah. But like, growing up in that time now, where success is almost something where they think it's just continual progress. You need to always be pushing it every day, another step further. And as you mentioned earlier in the podcast, like, sometimes you just need to stop and slow down. You're not backpedaling if you do that. You're just stopping and actually just look around for a minute.
I just got one of my first athletes who was talking about, he's getting ready to go to college next year. He's doing his senior year now. He's already talking about NIL deals. I'm like, bro, you haven't even like taken like college. Like, you don't know where you're going. And like, all he sees. So now we got like, I was kind of shocked by it. I knew it was out there. It was the first time that it came in front of me. So I've got this kid talking about it. And then is he going to go somewhere for a year? And then he's got access to the transfer portal, and he's got access to these deals that I think it'll be interesting in the next couple of years. I don't know if it'll be good or bad. I have my suspicions, but I certainly don't want to like put it out there.
Right.
But it's going to be interesting, because you're going to see a lot of change in that industry, and it obviously will affect the team sector. But I'm curious to see how it's going to affect the private sector with what these kids are deciding to do and taking on that stress of, you know, now I got to make this money for this brand.
Right. Yeah.
You know, or like, I got to promote this brand so I can make my money. Sorry. But I also got to play for this team, but like, this team's not winning, and I can go to this team after this year. I mean, I get more money, but like, bro, like, you're like, I mean, you know as well as I do, some kids are really good in high school. Some kids were okay in college, and very few made it professionally. And it's going to be stressful. So
how I take that on. I didn't realize the difference of it until I worked with youth hockey a while ago. And, you know, when I was a kid, I'm sure you can relate. Like, we played a season, like when it was baseball season, we played baseball. You know, you played for a team, you played for your town. Maybe there was a travel team that you got on, which was like the all-star type group. Yep. Then I got into youth hockey and realized all of it is private work. Like, nobody's playing for the school. They're playing for the Dynamos. Like, they're playing for these specific teams where they're paying, and they're traveling all over. And then I'm listening to the conversations of the parents of, well, I think this is going to be better for their kid's personal brand and their personal journey to go on this team. And they're traveling, an hour and change to practice every single day, because this team is going to give them a little bit more, traction down the line. The kid's like 11 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? I'm like, what is going on here? Like, this is crazy. But I was also like, they were hiring personal trainers. They were hiring coaches at 11 to 14 years old because Johnny next door was doing the same thing and they didn't want him to get the leg up. I'm like, this is so crazy now for kids, especially in the athletics world, of the specialty type. So I don't know if it's good or bad. I think there's probably a little combination of both in there.
I mean, great for biz.
Yeah, really.
Mental health,
Yeah.
Which way, how are we measuring this here? But that's probably more true than I think it is great for biz. We're going to be real busy, but I don't know. I'm not going to relate to these kids one bit, not one bit. I had to play for a losing team, or I couldn't quit. If we stunk that year, next year we stunk again. And
exactly.
We just showed up and
Oh
played,
yeah. Unless some kid randomly moved into the neighborhood that was just an absolute all-star. Your team was not going to be that great the next year unless you're just building in. That's great.
Yeah.
So So with your athletes, you work a lot with high school, with college, with professional and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Is there a demographic that you feel like it just fits better, like for you? Like, do you like working with one group a little bit better than the other?
I think it depends on how you feel in the day.
Yeah.
Athletes are cool. Professional athletes have their own issues when it comes to training them. Mm-hmm. There's some obstacles to overcome. College kids, traditionally, it's like 50-50. They'll be hard workers, but they don't always have like the best money, and it gets tricky for that. High school kids are hilarious, like they are. But I gotta be honest, man. I got a lot of middle-aged moms of multiple kids. It's cool. Like the stress is low. They talk about what they got going on. They bake me cookies.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not a bad life.
Yeah.
So I think it just depends on which way the wind blows at that time. I'm a super competitive guy. That's really why I got into this in the first place. Yeah. And why I still do it, and I'll probably do it till I die. To be honest with you, like I love it. I love it so much. I don't know, man. I think that is what I like about my position and where I am in my career, is that I can do, if I feel like doing more of one thing or the other, I can go back and forth and put my eggs in those baskets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's so interesting because a lot of times people will tell you find what you're good in and kind of niche into that area and stuff. It's like, for a while, I was like, I totally get that. Mm-hmm. I was always much more like you. I like working with a lot of different people who have different things that make them tick. There's different energies that you can have. And I think it keeps you sharp in so many ways, so especially, I agree. Yeah. So it's like, working with moms and weekend warriors, people who are really trying to just become better in their lives and have energy so they can do everything that they can do. Then it's fun to go into the athletic based realm as well. But it's like, I learned probably more in my career working with like seniors, like 70 and 80-year-old people who are trying to work on mobility and stay in their homes than I did working with the young athletes who wanted to get a scholarship and go play, professional sports.
I agree. I think you can take things from a certain population and be like, maybe this will be cool over here in this setting, in this context. So it's not uncommon to see some of my people doing some of the same stuff sometimes, but for different reasons, right? And it does keep your skills sharp for sure, to be able to utilize that big toolbox of knowledge that isn't hopefully not just for show. But yeah, I fell victim to that, obviously, because that was a big thing coming up, was you got to be niche and you got to be like the subject matter expert, and that's all you do. And had I had any foresight into business, I probably would have changed the name or not gone with Queen City Kettlebell, because that's a fraction of what I do. Yeah. But here I am all these years later. I gotta figure this out as I go. So
yeah, no, I totally get. Well, and I think if you're good, then you're always going to have the following. People are going to find you if you're good and you love what you do from there. Let me ask you though, DJ, this is just interesting because you mentioned your love of art and especially in sculpture. Do you think that side of your personality and your love of that, do you think that has carried over into your creative side at all, into like your training and what you do in strength?
I can't see a direct correlation. It makes me good at Jeopardy sometimes when it comes up. you know, and some trivial things that'll pop up occasionally in the gym. No, I think I'm more creative because the copious amounts of caffeine I consume in the morning, to be honest with you, my mind's going a million miles away. No, but I studied a lot of people who were innovators and just got outside the box thinking, and that were like, it's funny because you look at some of these people who were influential in the field, but were kind of like disregarded because they were so outside the box. I'm like, that's awesome. You know, there was a guy, Matt Kearse. He was a strength coach for the Yankees and the Reds. And he was one of the first guys who did hill sprints with his baseball players. So when we eventually grew to a bigger facility at the gym, it had this parking like pad on the side, and it had this hill, like this ridiculously steep incline that we probably should have been running up. But I was like, he's doing it, and I kind of like what he's saying. So now I got these baseball players, you know, trucking full speed up this parking pad hill, and I'm like, yeah, but like nobody was doing it, and I was like, okay, what? But then you got to go back and be like, okay, why am I doing it?
Exactly.
What am I trying to accomplish? So it was like, I think I was more influenced by seeing other people think outside the box that then enabled me to take that or be like, what if we change that and then make those changes? Yeah. You know, Dan John was a great example of that. Yeah. He showed me something. I was like, oh man, what do you think about this? And then if you've ever worked with Dan, nothing goes as planned. Right. Never. It never goes as planned. So now he's like teaching this thing, but now it's just, everybody has now come over here and we're like, you know, kind of goofing around with this dowel rod. So it's like, we're kids with like marveling over a dowel rod on how to do stuff, but it was stuff like that that became innovative. I think, to answer your question, I think the art's just something it's my thing. Yeah. I think it's a fun thing. I think I enjoy it. It brings me, you know, peace, calm, and tranquility. Yeah. But I think that,
Well, it's interesting because I've seen that creative side in some different people. I've seen it in myself. Like Mike Sousa is one of my favorite people to talk to out in Modesto. And he is like, he loves gardening so much. And that's a form of art of like pruning and like,
if you look at that dude,
things down,
like he's not planting anything, man.
Oh, absolutely. Cool, all of a sudden he's got this like kind of this, you know, divine feminine energy that he's going in of creating something in there. And I didn't realize that until I started getting into writing and poetry and really getting into, it's like, so it's always interesting. Sometimes these creative outlets in the art world, I think sometimes can lead to innovation in the other areas. Like Dan is one of those. Dan's a very interesting person to talk to because he is so creative. He's written 1.5 million books. He reads like crazy copious amounts of articles and books and stuff. And it is when you start working with him, like nothing goes as planned because he has 9 different ideas in his head. And then he's just trying to pick from one versus another.
Yeah, I got his, right before we sat down, I saw the email for his Wondering Weights, like issue, whatever, 500, whatever he's been doing. And I'm like, well, I'll be reading that later, you know? But there's always, another one that I like, James Clear wrote Atomic Habits. He had a newsletter, the 321 newsletter. I've subscribed to that for a while now. And, you know, sometimes it hits and sometimes it doesn't. But some of the days, you know, he asked that question and you're like, oh man, I'm going to ponder on this. I'm going to ponder. Yeah. And then if you take it to work with you and you're in the gym and that question can pop up, it changes a lot. So I think maybe the influences are atypical. I think if everything that you do in this industry is everything you do in this industry, you're missing a lot because there's so many outside ways to be influenced. And my professional career probably wouldn't have changed had I not had the outside influence of asking a deeper question, having that communication and what we're looking at, because it changed a lot. And nobody was writing a book on that, you know, so you got to take, influence can strike anywhere. Well, that's an art thing. Influence can strike anywhere, you know? So, so you got to look outside the profession a lot of times.
Oh, it's awesome. So, DJ, dude, it's been a blast talking with you, man. I can't believe an hour's just flown by in like 2 seconds here.
I appreciate it, man. So I normally say no to these things. So I appreciate you.
Oh, good. Well, I'm honored. Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's great. I remember I love seeing the work that you do. And I love the energy that you're putting in, you know, to coaching. And you know, just being, I think, just a true example of, you know, what a strength coach should be is always looking for better ways, new opportunities to do things, of changing things up and kind of just doing the things that you love to do. And it really just shows in everything that you're doing. So I really appreciate it, man.
I appreciate that, man. Super, very complimentary. Sometimes I don't take compliments too well. That's tough to hear. So I appreciate that. I know it's very genuine. So I appreciate those kind of words, my man.
Oh, no doubt, man. I really enjoyed this. And I know you don't do a lot of them, but I'd love to have you back because I feel like we're just getting started.
So the other day we were talking, so I'm going to put it out there because you're still recording, is I want to, Mark deGrasse, I think is how you say his name. He's the one that started My Mad Methods. We're connected on social media. I want to interview this guy. I want to be like, because I don't think he understands how many people were reading his magazine, because it's so cool when you talk to people and they bring it up and they're like, oh man, you had My Mad Methods. And it's like everybody's gathered around and everyone wants to know. I think somewhere back here, like 20 magazines that he had. And I would love to talk about it because I still go back to those, in my little basement gym when I don't know what to do. I'll rip open a magazine and be like, what do I want to do? And here's something somebody was doing. And I'll crank it out for 10, 20 minutes. Yeah. It's super, super valuable to hold on to stuff like that. And I would love to talk to that guy. So if you can get him on the podcast, I'll come back. If not, it's gonna be like another 5 years before I do
challenge accepted. I'll make it happen. This will be great. So
cool.
DJ, dude, awesome seeing you, man. Thanks so much for the time, dude.
I appreciate you, Mike. Have a good one, buddy.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found some great value here. And if you like this episode, please drop a comment and leave us a 5-star rating and review. It does more to build the show than you can imagine. And do not forget to check out and join the Strength Connection Facebook group. In this group, I share the biggest takeaways and lessons from these amazing conversations, as well as training and strength tips for pursuing mastery and fulfillment in life. This group is filled with individuals looking to take full control over their strength, and it's the perfect space to explore new ideas and to share your journey. And you'll also get exclusive access to these Strength Connection Mastery seminars. It's a deep dive into the physical, mental, and spiritual training that you can begin using immediately. So do not wait, go now. Seriously, go. All right, much love to you. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you on the next one.